Hey kids, Pedestrian Tactics here. A while back, Gates asked for some mixing feedback on a track, and I liked it so much that I wanted to make some changes to it, so I asked him if I could do a remix. Apparently, a handful of other producers said the same thing because this turned into a legit compilation with deadlines in real life. I'd like to talk about how I made this, how it got played out, and how I managed to create a remix while living in my parents' house on a tatami mat because my studio is constantly booked out on Airbnb. Shameless plug, if you'd like to stay in the heart of Capitol Hill and produce in my studio, be sure to book some time on Airbnb before I decide this isn't a worthy financial investment and take it down. Let's first address how I got Gates to play this track at Shambhala. I don't know. Here are two possibilities. A, the track turned out really good, or B, he pitied my Twitter following and felt sorry for how much of a homeschooler I was. The Shambhala play was just an act of charity. For the sake of this breakdown, I'm going to pretend it was A. Please. So how did I make it good? Well, the answer is a term I'd actually like to coin right now called pretend remixing. This is when you have a track that you're already working on and couldn't really finish yourself, and some remix opportunity pops up. So you just make the track sound like you were remixing their work, when in fact you're just trying to finish your own song. And by the time I asked Gates if I could actually do the remix, I had already had this section done. I had obsessed over that bass and those drums for a while, and then I didn't have any idea for an intro on it. So when I asked to do the remix, I thought, nah, maybe I can make something else and then bridge the two tracks together. I've done this in previous songs, and sometimes I'll actually silo them in separate project files so that my lazy brain doesn't try to borrow one thing from the other, and it makes them two distinctly different things. And then the process is just kind of trying to mesh the two together in the middle. In this case, I did a tempo change. When I heard the Gates, Bil Bless, and Kandisha track, I really liked the rolling vibe that it had. And what I imagined was adding some drums and a bass that sounded like what I really wanted to hear when I heard Childish Gambino's This Is America. I'm going to pull this sidechain off so that we can hear everything. And just a note on the sidechain, I didn't do any sidechain compression in this. I just did a manual volume automation. I've created a utility, which is kind of dumb, that I just call a ducking utility. This is really just a shortcut for a utility that goes from its max being at 0 dB to infinite down, and then I can control it easily with a volume automation. So in the case of this track, I'm ducking pretty much the entire song when the kick and snare hit. And the thing I like about this is that you can cut the volume of the whole track out if you want to. And you can also adjust very carefully how that curve responds. I love how the depth of this bass came out with very little effort. What's driving it is a violin overlaid over a sine note in operator with just a little bit of noise. So I'll isolate each one of these. And let's turn off the... So it's just a sine note with some noise on it. And then the magic here is because I just took a violin section. That's how it is normally. It's awful, but when you pair it with the sine wave, and then you take all of that and you throw it through a saturator, a crow noise is just dope. I don't know why. It just sounds great as a crash. Okay, I was really stoked about this. When this gets halfway through the section, I bring in the sound of a train crossing bell. And this is generational because now train crossing bells have turned into digital signals in some cities. But at least for my generation, I think this conveys a sense of urgency, and you can use that to your advantage. Another thing I attempted to do here was contrasting one section from another. So as the intro vocals come in, they have a stereo kind of detuned treatment to them. And then immediately the bass takes over that stereo space. So I take the vocals and slam them into the center. So the point is contrasting section A from section B to surprise the listener. I got a lot of fun artifacts from resampling this track. So this is a really just dirty, no, those are resampled coins, but same thing. The little strings are stretched way out. Somewhere I ended up recording a bass drop and then just stretched it out using regular stretching algorithms. You can watch literally all of my tutorials, and I do that for everything forever. Watch me. Yeah, look at that main synth. I spent a ton of time on this, and all that's happening is a phaser and a reverb that are heavily automated second by second. I'm automating the frequency of this, and then I'm automating the dry wet of this. And then there's a bunch of pitch automation that's happening inside the MIDI track. And this was all done by feel. I would highly suggest writing melodies like this and just obsessing over them, and you'll hate them for a long time. And then you'll take one part and copy and paste it and loop it, and then it might sound kind of cool. It's just a bunch of obsessive drama. This may seem exhausting, but if you take one measure and then just copy and paste it and then make very small adjustments, you don't actually have to do that much work in terms of the song. And I think there's this mental space that happens once you get a groove going that you end up wanting to play it over and over and over again. I've burnt myself out on whole songs just for making a 30-second section. When you're in that space, that's actually a really powerful zone to just start copying and pasting the thing and making small adjustments to it, because you're doing the work that you'll have to do later in the song right away while you're excited to listen to it over and over again. So use that part to your advantage. The second main synth I ended up making after I did the intro, but I was shamelessly doing the same thing that I've done in a lot of tracks, which is where I add a high resonant element to a main synth. I mean, you could look at the Ghost tutorial. Did I do a tutorial for Ghost? Should I do a tutorial for Ghost? This is embarrassing. So this is the same main bass, but what I've done is I've overlaid a square wave over it, and the distortion takes care of it being kind of smashed in there. Let me do another shameless plug. This will be great. I actually cover some similar techniques to this in depth in my little course on Producer Dojo called How I Made Nerds Trying to Dance. Go check that out, because it's a lot of tutorials that are much longer and in-depth than this. I like how this vocal section came out. I threw the sample back in, and then I pushed it to stereo and then just panned it across, which is okay on its own, but it kind of... And I think those are the... Yeah, there's a pitched up version of the little train things. Again, I'm just reusing things from earlier in the song. If you made it this far through the tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made the snare. So you can tell it's echoed a little bit, but in order to construct that sort of pongy snare sound, this is the group that I made to construct it. And just as this was kind of a neat little thing, I created a group called Trash that I just color gray so it's not obvious. And then I just turn it off, and if I do something like make a snare that's made out of like 5 different sounds, I do a resample of them, and then I just chuck the group into the trash just in case I need to go back there and reference something. So I'll show you each component. It's you've got something to add a little bit of impact. That's a little bit of a kick. That's a little metal thing, slap clap thing. And this is the echo component, that wood block. And actually, when I echo it, I just take that wood block sound and then I echo that. So it's a 2-component kind of snare. I prefer to keep drums in just raw audio form and copy and paste them. I'm too lazy to stick it all in a rack. I totally understand the thing about swapping between random drums with some sort of knob, but I just never got into that. I'd rather f with audio. There's loads more in this track, but I think these are the obvious things. I've got a few more videos on my YouTube that fill in the gaps. If you're interested in learning even more from me, there's a book a session link on my website where you can book a 1-hour session with me. I've been doing this for the last year or so, and by far it's my favorite method of sustaining the project, even above playing gigs and Patreon. That's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or suggestions for other breakdowns in the comments.